Here are the top stories for today, June 3, 2021. Sleeves up now, President Rodrigo Duterte urges all Filipinos anew to avail of the COVID-19 vaccination program, citing that this is essential in the safe reopening of the economy. Vaccines for all, the President calls for measures to address the current imbalance in vaccine distribution across the world, as this is the key to a real and inclusive global recovery from the pandemic. Several parts of the country pick up from the effects of bad weather as Tropical Storm Dante is now on its way out of the country. And get tested before that trip. The discounted COVID-19 testing for travelers is back in a bid to revive local tourism. Good day, I am William Theo. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. President Rodrigo Duterte has appeared in a government infomercial to invite Filipinos to get vaccinated against COVID-19. In the nearly 2-minute infomercial, the President said the people's participation is crucial in the safe reopening of the economy. Let's watch this.
I invite all our kababayans to be vaccinated at the earliest possible opportunity, because this is the most, if not the only way, effective way to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic. Let us all keep in mind that the vaccine will not only protect you from the virus, it will also protect your loved ones, especially the sick and elderly. Your participation in the Res Bakuna Kasangga ng Bida campaign is therefore key if we are to reopen our economy and reclaim our normal lives. To the Filipino people, let me assure you that the government will continue to do its best to protect you until we overcome this health crisis together. Let us heal as one nation. Kapwa Pilipino, magpabakuna na po tayo.
President Rodrigo Duterte has renewed his call for universal access to safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines, saying vaccine imbalance will have consequences. In his statement during the Gavi-COVAX Advanced Market Commitment Summit, President Duterte said the current glaring imbalance in vaccine distribution must be corrected, or there will be no real and inclusive global recovery to speak of. He said the Philippines, as both donor and recipient country, counts on the COVAX initiative to bring much-needed vaccines to developing countries. The President thanked the Gavi Alliance and encouraged more countries to also contribute. The summit was held with the aim to fill the 1.8 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine for lower-income economies. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed to increase the volume of deliveries of Sputnik V COVID-19 vaccine doses in the country. During a phone call meeting, President Rodrigo Duterte discussed matters with Putin as they both commit to further enhance bilateral ties between the Philippines and the Russian Federation. The country has so far received a total of 80,000 Sputnik V doses.
Nag-usap po kahapon si Pangulong Duterte at Russian Federation President Vladimir Putin sa okasyon ng 45th anniversary ng establishment ng diplomatic relations ng Pilipinas at Russia. Nagpasalamat si Presidente kay Presidente Putin dahil sa ginawang available ang Sputnik V sa Pilipinas, at inulit ng ating Pangulo ang kahalagahan ng expeditious delivery ng mga in-order na bakuna. Sa kanyang parte, sinabi ni Presidente Putin na tataasan ng Russia ang volume ng Sputnik V vaccine deliveries sa Pilipinas.
The COVID-19 vaccination of individuals belonging to the A4 priority group starts on Monday, June 7. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. said the vaccination will be massively launched once the bulk of the COVID-19 vaccine arrives this June and in the coming months. Galvez said the government will hold a symbolic vaccination rollout for economic frontliners who work outside their homes, as well as the government workforce or the public sector workers. Meanwhile, the vaccination of both the A4 and the A5 priority groups will be focused on the COVID-19 high-risk areas such as the National Capital Region or NCR, Bulacan, Pampanga, Laguna, Cavite, Rizal, as well as Metro Cebu and Metro Davao. Galvez said the vaccines from the COVAX facility will be given to the targeted population, including healthcare workers, senior citizens, and persons with comorbidities, while the A4 priority groups will get the government-procured vaccines. COVID-19 reproduction rate in Metro Manila slightly increased. This means the number of people that can be infected by the virus slightly goes up. According to the Octo Research Group, the COVID-19 reproduction number has increased from 0.57 to 0.68. This is from May 26 to June 1st. Meanwhile, the country's reproduction number increased from the previous week's average of 4,898 to 6,699. Significant increases in new cases were logged in Antipolo and Santa Rosa, Laguna. And here's an update on the coronavirus disease situation worldwide. The World Health Organization says there is a continuous decrease in the number of COVID-19 cases in the world. The WHO noted a 15% decrease in the number of cases, which is currently at 3.5 million compared to last week. There is also a 7% decrease or 78,000 new deaths in the past week. Let us take a look at the latest figures from Johns Hopkins. Still to come, another batch of beneficiaries are one step closer to returning to their hometowns through the Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa program. And lawmakers are not pleased over the series of rotational brownouts in Luzon. Details ahead, this is the PNA Newsroom. The COVID-19 pandemic has greatly changed our lives for the worse. Lives and jobs were lost and economies reached a meltdown. Thanks to the arrival of safe and effective vaccines, we are one step closer to normalcy. It's time to do our part, get vaccinated for our safety and for our recovery.
If you are there in that community, go there and have yourself vaccinated by any of the vaccines available. They are all potent, they are all effective. I would like to appeal to all our kababayans, please get vaccinated against COVID-19 and be the government partner in preventing further spread of the disease. I encourage you to get vaccinated as soon as possible time. These vaccines are safe and they are the key to reopening our society. The need for international solidarity and cooperation cannot be made clearer than this pandemic, because everyone is safe. No one is safe globally until everybody is safe.
Vaccines work. Cagayan de Oro and Cebu gear up to administer Sputnik V among other priority individuals. Meanwhile, government employees in Pangasinan have already been inoculated against the dreaded disease. The details from Marita Muwahe.
In Cagayan de Oro City, healthcare workers await instructions from the Department of Health for its specialized handling and administering of Sputnik V vaccine. This as the city received about 1,500 doses of the jobs. Mayor Oscar Moreno said he is looking at the possibility of storing the vaccines in the immunization areas, particularly at the malls that partnered with the local government as vaccination sites. Cebu City also received the Russian-made Sputnik V vaccines. The Department of Health in Central Visayas said the 300 doses of Sputnik V that arrived will be administered to first-dose vaccinees, particularly those who are under the A1 to A3 priority groups. And in Pangasinan, some 454 employees of the provincial government have been vaccinated against COVID-19. These are the employees who belong to the A2 senior citizens and A3 priority groups. The Provincial Health Office is now gearing up for the A4 priority group. Of the nearly 2 million eligible population in Pangasinan, 81,685 are now vaccinated with Sinovac and AstraZeneca vaccines. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Marita Muaje.
Those longing to go back to their provinces and start new lives are one step closer to making their dream turning into a reality. This as the second batch of beneficiaries of the government's Balik Probinsya Bagong Pag-asa or BP2 program are set to be sent home to Leyte. Another 49 beneficiaries underwent the usual dispatch procedure where they were swab tested and have completed a 14-day quarantine. They were also provided with food and lodging at the BP2 depot in Quezon City while waiting for their swab test results. Returnees who tested negative for COVID-19 will depart in 2 batches on Friday morning, where they will be taken to the Ninoy Aquino International Airport for their flight to Leyte. Those who tested positive will undergo a triage procedure, where those asymptomatic and have mild symptoms will be taken to quarantine facilities, while those symptomatic and have severe symptoms will be taken to an assigned hospital. Created under Executive Order 114 last year, the BP2 aims to provide hope for a better future to Filipinos through equity and resources throughout the country aimed at boosting countryside development. Last week, an initial 61 beneficiaries were sent home to Leyte through the BP2 program. A 3-year program between the government and the United Nations is set to strengthen the conduct of investigations on human rights violations in the country. Manila and the UN capped this week the technical discussions on the program document of UN Joint Programs on Human Rights. Once set in motion, the UNJP will promote human rights-based approaches to countering terrorism, as well as establish a national referral pathway to address human rights concerns. It will also strengthen the conduct of investigations and filing of appropriate charges on human rights violations. The UNJP document was developed following a series of intensive consultations between Manila and participating UN agencies, with inputs from the Commission on Human Rights and civil society groups. The Department of Foreign Affairs said this initiative will enhance the capacity of national institutions to promote and protect human rights and strengthen compliance with its international human rights obligations. Tropical storm Dante has so far left 14 million pesos in damage to agriculture, plus thousands of travelers stranded in parts of the country. Food packs and other forms of aid are meanwhile on their way to affected residents. Chris Mundo has the story.
The agriculture sector has incurred a total of 14.6 million in losses as of Wednesday, June 2, due to Tropical Storm Dante. The volume of production loss, including rice and corn, was placed at 500 metric tons in 616 agricultural areas in Socsargen and Caraga regions. Interventions to help affected farmers and fisherfolk include distribution of rice, corn, and assorted vegetable seeds, farm inputs, and feeds. Affected farmers are also urged to apply for the Survival Recovery Loan Program of the Agricultural Credit Policy Council. In South Cotabato, over 1,000 hectares of agricultural crops were damaged, while nearly 600 farmers have been affected by the series of flooding in the last 2 weeks. The Provincial Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Office said at least 5 municipalities in the Upper Valley area were hit hard by severe floods caused by the heavy rains spawned by the Intertropical Convergence Zone and Tropical Storm Dante. Most of the flooded barangays were near the critical Ala and Banga rivers and their tributaries. 2 major bridges and dikes along the Alak and the Banga rivers were also damaged by the floods. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard on Wednesday reported that a total of 3,007 individuals, among others, are stranded in Eastern Visayas, Central Visayas, Northeastern Mindanao, and Southern Tagalog and Bicol regions due to Tropical Storm Dante. 87 vessels and 84 motor bankas were also taking shelter as a precautionary measure against the possible threat of the tropical cyclone. In other news, the Department of Social Welfare and Development has prepared nearly 19,000 family food packs for the residents of Ilocos region to be affected by Tropical Storm Dante. Each family food pack contains 6 kilos of rice, 4 canned tuna, 4 canned corned beef, 2 sardines, 5 sachets of coffee, and 2 sachets of a cereal drink. There are also over 4,800 family kits available containing t-shirts and short pants, as well as 498 hygiene kits, 920 sleeping kits, and 27 tents. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Crismundo.
Shoppers in Bulacan got access to affordable and discounted basic goods at a 3-day in-store Descuento Caravan. The Department of Trade and Industry, or DTI, opened the Descuento Caravan from May 31 to June 2 in some big supermarkets and hypermarkets. The DTI said supermarkets were the safest and most health protocol compliant venues for the conduct of the activity. The Descuento Caravan aims to give consumers access to affordable basic and prime goods such as bread, salt, and canned sardines amid the COVID-19 pandemic. A lawmaker at the House of Representatives on Wednesday called for a congressional inquiry into the rotational brownouts experienced in Metro Manila and other parts of Luzon. Quezon City Representative Precious Hipolito Castelo highlighted the need for sufficient electricity supply amid the national rollout of COVID-19 vaccines, which require refrigeration at varying temperatures. Castelo said the power interruptions also affect millions of students and teachers who conduct classes online, as well as businesses and employees who are working from home. The National Grid Corporation of the Philippines started placing the Luzon grid on red and yellow alerts last weekend due to low electricity reserves and supply amid high demand brought about by the summer heat. Energy officials claim that the power outages have been caused by maintenance shutdowns of several power plants and the failure of some generators to deliver their contracted capacity. In our business news, some 408 drug applications with the Food and Drug Administration, or FDA, have been automatically approved. This after the Anti-Red Tape Authority issued a show-cause order against the FDA's Center for Drug Regulation and Research, or CDRR. The ARTA said that in response to the show-cause order, the CDRR had processed 408 out of the 412 automatic renewal applications. The ARTA issued the show-cause order dated May 11, 2021, after it received 23 affidavits from several pharmaceutical firms. They claim that CDRR has yet to approve their renewal, even though some of them were filed about 7 years ago. Under Republic Act 11032, or the Ease of Doing Business and Efficient Government Service Delivery Law, government agencies are given 3 working days to process simple transactions, 7 working days for complex transactions, and 20 working days for highly technical transactions. Up next, the guidelines are set for the bubble training of athletes for this year's Southeast Asian Games. And get tested for COVID-19 at a discounted price before packing your bags and wandering with care. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom. You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. The Philippine government will continue to strengthen its bilateral relations with Israel amid worries of overseas Filipino workers on the situation there. Ambassador Macairog Alberto made the statement after he was summoned by Israel to clarify the Philippines' vote supporting the investigation by the United Nations Human Rights Council on Israel's Operation Guardian of the Walls. Alberto called on OFWs in Israel to focus on their work and continue being professional and diligent. He added that the issue with Manila's vote before is a multilateral issue and is not only discussed at the embassy level. Alberto assured Filipinos in Israel that the embassy will continue to protect their welfare while ensuring that the good relations between the two nations will remain. On May 30, Israel's Foreign Ministry Deputy Director General for the Asia-Pacific, Gilad Cohen, told Alberto that Manila's UNHRC vote is unacceptable to Israel. The UNHRC was investigating alleged human rights violations and abuses during the attacks at the Gaza Strip. Moving on to our news overseas, the world's first case of a human being infected with the bird flu virus H1N3 has been registered in eastern China's Jiangsu province. In a news release from the Chinese National Health Commission on Tuesday, a 41-year-old man in the city of Zhenjiang said last April that he felt he was running a temperature. Several days later, when his condition turned worse, he was taken to the hospital and his condition stabilized. On May 28, health experts examined the patient's test samples and concluded that the man had been infected with H1N3. All of his contacts have been put under medical observation, but no more cases of bird flu have occurred among them. The news release said H1N3 was transmitted from birds and is low pathogenic. In sports, the government has issued guidelines for the conduct of bubble training of the Philippine team bound for the 2021 Southeast Asian Games in Hanoi, Vietnam later this year. The Philippine Sports Commission, Games and Amusements Board, and the Department of Health made the joint order which applies only to the members of the Philippine team. The bubble-type training shall be implemented under strict supervision and monitoring of designated health and safety officers. Only areas placed under moderate and low-risk community quarantine classifications can host bubble trainings with a maximum number of allowed individuals. Meanwhile, the PSC is studying the hosting of bubble training for athletics, boxing, karate, and other sports in its Baguio facility. The Philippines will send around 700 athletes and officials to the Hanoi SEA Games set from November 21 to December 2nd. And it's good news for tourists from the NCR Plus bubble. You can now get tested for COVID-19 before your trips at 50% off. The Department of Tourism, or DOT, announced this on Wednesday after the government allowed leisure travel in and out of the NCR Plus. Tourists may get tested at 900 pesos and 750 pesos from the UP Philippine General Hospital in Manila and the Philippine Children's Medical Center in Quezon City, respectively. To qualify, travelers must have confirmed round-trip transportation tickets and booking confirmation with a DOT-accredited accommodation establishment. Tourism Secretary Bernadette Romulo Puyat is optimistic this move would help bring the tourism industry back on its feet. To apply for the discounted test, tourists must register at the Tourism Promotions Board website. And here's another look at today's biggest stories. Sleeves up now, President Rodrigo Duterte urges all Filipinos anew to avail of the COVID-19 vaccination program, citing that this is essential in the safe reopening of the economy. Vaccines for all, the President calls for measures to address the current imbalance in vaccine distribution across the world, as this is the key to a real and inclusive global recovery from the pandemic. Several parts of the country pick up from the effects of bad weather as Tropical Storm Dante is now on its way out of the country. And get tested before that trip. The discounted COVID-19 testing for travelers is back in a bid to revive local tourism. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head onto the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know. From the PNA Newsroom, we tell stories that inspire change. I am William Theo. Good day. Stay safe, everyone.